Dear African, American, Asian, European friends and all those who support us around the world in this fight for truth and justice, feel greeted. On this day, according to the declarations of the Jugendamtering of Saarbrücken and its family, justice 1 year since the death of Paul Edward Jr., because until now we do not know if he is really dead or if he is alive, because no one has seen his body except his executioners. We would like to make a brief summary of the circumstances which led Paul Edward to his elimination by drug poisoning, torture, inhuman and degrading treatment, and above all an important element which appears after several point-by-point analyses of the different details and elements in our possession. The martyr Paul Edward, having been the victim on several occasions of acts of violence, discrimination and racism on the part of his classmates at the Max-Ophulsß primary school in Saarbrücken, and his mother having tried to change schools for him on several occasions but unfortunately rejected by the German school system in Saarbrücken under the pressure and high education of the school director Max-Ophulsß in Saarbrücken, she and her husband were forced to leave Germany. When this news was announced to the educational institutions of Saarbrücken, they began to think up a Machiavellian plan to prevent them. Ironically, the husband returned from Africa suddenly fell ill with mild malaria. The distraught mother called the Red Cross near the marital home. The neighbors who were already persecuting the family knew about it and alerted the police, who were already working with the Max-Ophulsß school and the Jugendamtering on a plan to prevent the family from leaving Germany. So a second one comes on the scene, the so-called doctor who will inject a substance into the IV that will lead to Mr. Bjorn's death. Under the exhausted gaze of the 3 young nurses who will end their evening traumatized but unable to say anything. As if that wasn't enough, 2 weeks after the results of the fake autopsies, so the family will never know about it, the morning of the mother's departure with her children for Paris to obtain travel documents, the Saarbrücken social services, the Jugendamtering, accompanied by the German police, arrive at the marital home where Paul Edward, his sister and his mother are. The front door of the apartment located at 22 Mosatras 66111 Saarbrücken is opened by the building concierge with his own keys without the mother's permission, who is caught in the bathroom half naked with her children. The German police, the police officer accompanied by his colleague in civilian clothes, brandishes their badge to the mother saying, "Polizei, we came because we heard that you are going to Africa with your children." And the mother, who tries to explain that she is in mourning and has just suddenly lost her husband, does not interest them. They call Paul Edward next door and they talk. According to known statements, Paul Edward said that his mother often hit them with a little pink belt which hurt when he and his sister did something stupid or did not obey their mother's instructions. Here is the sentence that will let Paul Edward to death and also to regret, since when he says "I said it to laugh," and that while laughing he will turn the matter against him by oppressing him and saying that I'm not normal, he's crazy. So the child Paul Edward, described in the first days in court as responsible, the one who cares about his mother and his sister, has suddenly become someone who could not live in society with others, someone aggressive. Hence the plot for his elimination with the complicity of the Saarbrücken family justice system and its incompetent judges begins. Seeing that Juror N's goal was to eliminate him after he escaped the first drug poisoning at the Hildesheim psychiatric clinic in Germany following pressure from his mother, the Jugendamtering decided to operate differently to eliminate it and have peace. Since Paul Edward understood that he had been trapped and that his school and family life had been destroyed, he no longer obeyed them, even though his mother told him to bear it. "Soon you will be 18, you can go back to school and get a second change." Paul Edward replied, "You want him to kill me." And indeed he killed him. Only he knows what an extreme nightmare he was experiencing, because he often said to his mother, "I can't tell you everything, you won't be able to bear this pain." What pain was he talking about? Arrival at the Jugendamtering psychiatric clinic in Saarbrücken, where his life was saved for the first time. This is where Gabby Becker enters the scene and brings him food on several occasions. This situation would intrigue the staff of the Jugendamtering psychiatric clinic, who will contact Mrs. Juror N. She will tell them, according to the statements of Eva the nurse which were recorded by Paul Edward's mother without her knowledge, to leave Gabby Becker's working of the Max-Ophulsß primary school free personal visit with Paul Edward, which will intrigue the staff of the Jugendamtering psychiatric clinic. In addition, Eva the nurse had insisted on the food that Gabby Becker often brought to Paul Edward, saying that this food was for him and only for him and that he should not share it with anyone. Then Paul Edward's mother surprised Gabby Becker at the clinic where Paul Edward was in Saarbrücken. Then 3 weeks later, when she returned to see Paul Edward, her complexion had completely changed. It had become a burnt blackish skin which challenged her and asked the nurses, who never gave her an answer. Then, having asked the question to Paul Edward, he replied to his mother that he thought that Gabby Becker would have poisoned him because since the day they started eating the food she brought him, he started to see color of its excrement change. After analyzing the photos before and after Gabby Becker's multiple visits, We clearly see a significant change in the color of Paul Edward's skin and its texture. Paul Edward's mother's analysis is clear. Gabby Becker would have poisoned Paul Edward with a slow poison which destroyed his vital organs in small fire, plus all these drug overdoses which would have produced a darkening of the color of the skin, which is a sign of toxicity of the blood, kidneys and or liver. So to better carry out their plan, they called on the ex-husband of Paul Edward's mother. You see that Paul Edward had been recognized by his mother's husband, who raised him until her death, as his son, and that Paul Edward called Papa and knew that it was his father. They changed her name, did the investigations, and found the name that Paul Edward's mother had given her after the divorce because she was separated from this man and was later pregnant. This gentleman had denounced paternity in court before and after the divorce. After the birth of Paul Edward, his dad Bjorn recognized him as his own son and educated him as such. So the Jugendamtering, seeking revenge against Paul Edward's mother and someone with no interest in Paul Edward's well-being, and used this man to completely isolate Paul Edward from his mother and murder him by medication and poison given by Gabby Becker. The mother is patiently waiting for the date of appearance in the Court of Appeal of the District of Saarbrücken to request the arraignment of Gabby Becker in this case, where she plays a crucial role in the death of Paul Edward. Please note that the Jugendamtering tried to create a diversion by attempting to force Paul Edward's mother to appear before a local court where her daughter is located, when she had repeatedly reiterated her refusal and maintained her decision to appear before the Saarbrücken Court of Appeal, the costs requested by the Court of Appeal having been paid by she. We also wanted to share with you the message that was read at the church concerning the victims who died in this fight, namely Paul Edward, his father Bjorn and his grandparents. Thank you for your attention and support.